Welcome back to another edition of Gen Sports Corner for Sunday, January 26th, Championship Sunday between the Eagles and the Commanders. Listen, man, big game today. Before I get into it, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure you are tuned to every time I drop a video. And let's talk about this game today. And look, we've been. This is the trilogy game right here. We already had two games this year against the Commanders. We won the first one. They won the recent one, the one where Jalen Hurts was concussed and had to leave the game, and the Commanders found a way to win that game. And now we have the third match, the one to decide everything, literally. Whoever wins this game goes to the Super Bowl. So let's go ahead and go through the matchups, the injury report, and I'll give you my prediction of who I think will win. So, on surface level, this is a matchup between a veteran with Jalen Hurts. I mean, look, you have him go. He has a chance to go to the Super Bowl for the second time in his young career. Even the one that we lost against the Chiefs, he had one of the best games by a quarterback that we probably seen. Um, just ask Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelsey; they alluded as much. So you have Jalen Hurts back in a situation with a drastically different team and drastically different offense, going against Jayden Daniels, the young rookie phenom, second pick in the draft, player that has completely turned this Commanders franchise around, among other things that they've done in the front office. And now you had them clashing for this matchup. And you look at Jayden Daniels, especially in this playoff run, he's really been excellent. He's excelled in many areas, especially in the passing game and against the blitz. So when you look at Jayden Daniels, he's had, according to PFF grades, a 97 overall grade, which is phenomenal. And then and that's the highest for any quarterback in a single postseason since 2006. So it lets you know the type of historic pace that he's really on going through this postseason. And then it's not even just that he's able to run well, it's the fact that he's able to pass under pressure, which is not typical for a rookie. So he's had a 92.8 passing grade under pressure per PFF in this playoffs, the best of any quarterback in the tournament. And then you look a little closer at this scenario, and you see of the 28 pressure dropbacks that he's had this postseason, he's only been sacked one time. And his scrambling ability just adds pressure to the defense when you have a guy that is really precise under pressure in the pocket as well. So he's excelled through the air under pressure, not just in terms of scrambling out when pressure is getting to him. Through the air, he's 14 of 21 for 203 yards, the highest passing rating under pressure. It includes Jalen Hurts, Pat Mahomes, potential MVP, if it hasn't already been named, Josh Allen, as well as Lamar Jackson. You just go down the list. He has been the best under pressure through the air. So it tells you how good this guy's been. And I was aware of his talent before the season started. I was going to draft him for my fantasy team. So I knew that he wasn't a runner who can make some plays. He is a passer who is able to run extremely well. And that's what makes him dangerous. So per PFF grades here, under pressure, he's phenomenal. When he's blitzed, he still has a high grade. His overall grade is 90.3 when blitzed, and his passing grade is still an 82.4 when blitzed. And he has a rating of he has a grade of 86.8 when he's taking off running when the blitz when he's blitzed. So he's been good with finding his targets, staying composed in the pocket, and when need be, he's able to scramble out the pocket. That's what I see with my eyes, and that's what is reflected in the stats as well. So you have Jayden Daniels, who is absolutely lighting it up, despite not really having a super great offensive line. They're not world beaters. They're not horrible, but Jayden Daniels is making that passing game more so than the offensive line is, from my perspective. And then you look at Jalen Hurts. He's been up and down with the passing game this year, and I'll get into it once we go into the matchups. But what is notable here is we struggle on third down. We have a lot of third and longs, and we struggle with picking up first downs on third down, and that's been reflected in the playoffs as well, and that's been part of the criticism of this offense. However, against man coverage, you can forget it against Jalen Hurts. You might as well just look at AJ Brown and just wait for the ball to get to him because AJ Brown's been absolutely lighting it up against man coverage, which the Commanders don't play. But a whole another different set of issues comes in, which I'll get into when it comes to playing zone coverage, which the Commanders will probably try to run a lot against Jalen Hurts. Because if you play man, it's either going to AJ Brown or Smitty as well, or Jalen Hurts, depending on how his knee is, can always take off. I'm not expecting him to, but that's always been the conundrum trying to play against Jalen Hurts. So you take the matchups and you have two quarterbacks that are playing at a high level in different ways. Jalen Hurts has been inconsistent, but when you try to stack the box against Saquon Barkley and you give the Eagles one-on-ones on the outside, Jalen Hurts will torch you. So that's the matchup the way I see it from the quarterback perspective. And then secondly, I want to immediately go into the injuries because this is going to dictate how the run game and the pass game actually shake out for both the Eagles and the Commanders today. So on the line, the Eagles, they had injuries, specifically with Cam Jurgens. It looks like it's going to be a minor back injury, and even though questionable, he probably will play on Sunday. Jalen Hurts is off the injury report. He will be playing on Sunday, most likely with that brace on his knee. And Quinyon Mitchell, he was able to practice, and he'll be playing in the game on Sunday. And then looking on the flip side for the Commanders, they have two critical injuries, in my opinion. One being to, who is it? Their guard, Cosme. And this is a big one for me because you have an injury to your right guard, and we already saw what Jalen Carter can do defensively in terms of collapsing the pocket and causing absolute havoc in the interior of the offensive line. And Cosme, one of their best, that's a huge hit for them, offensive guard. And they lost him last week, and they're going to feel that. Trent Scott, we'll see how he does, but if I'm the Eagles, I'm lining up Jalen Carter in the three technique on the outside of Trent Scott's shoulder and saying, hey, win one-on-one. And I like my odds with that matchup. And then secondly, you have a big injury with Daron Payne, the defensive tackle for the Commanders, who, although their run defense has been suspect as all get out, he's one of the few bright spots on that defensive line in terms of stopping the run. And they already struggled with him in the game versus Saquon Barkley twice this year. So with him out of the interior, how they were already going to have problems stopping his run game. What do they do now? They're going to have all hands on deck to deal with the run game, let alone the passing game, if Jalen Hurts is able to get into a rhythm. So those are the two big injuries for me. And I think it's really highlighted by this tweet by Bill Barnell. He says, on 1st and 10 runs this season with Daron Payne on the field, Washington had a 64% success rate on defense. Meanwhile, when he was sidelined in over 97 first and 10 run plays, the team dropped the team stat dropped down to 51.6. And that became on par for last in the whole league. So when he's in the lineup, they are functional, if not very good. Out of the lineup, they are dumpster juice. So that's a huge loss for them. And we'll see how they adjust there. But again, I love the matchup there on the interior of the line with Mekhi Becton. Get after their defensive tackles and really go to work on them. And that helps Cam Jurgens. If you have an iffy back, having one of their best run defenders out of the game certainly helps your case. So that's the injury front. And that's going to play into some of the key matchups. First, in the run game, as I mentioned before, Saquon Barkley. I don't know how they're going to stop him in the same way as I didn't know how the Commanders were going to stop Jahmyr Gibbs. And they didn't. It's just that the Lions defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, so they couldn't keep pace, along with Jared Goff turning the ball over too much. I didn't see the whole game, so I don't know how much of that is because of pressure put on him from the Commanders versus him making mistakes because they're playing from behind. I don't know the answer to that, but he certainly turned the ball over too much. But the run game did whatever they wanted to in Detroit against the Commanders. So I foresee the same thing happening with Saquon Barkley. And furthermore, I don't have the exact stat down to the T, but Saquon Barkley has had the most success against the Commanders versus any team in his career. Similar to the way that Jim Brown had the most success in his career against the Philadelphia Eagles in terms of yards per game and just overall performance. So he's just always had the Commanders' number, whether he was with the Giants with that bad offensive line or with the Eagles this year. So he just plays well against them. So that is key matchup number one. Key matchup number two goes to in my opinion, Zach Bond and that linebacking core being able to keep an eye, along with that front seven, on Jayden Daniels. You have to be able to do some of the things you were able to do in the first game, get pressure on him with four where possible, and really make him sit back and have to make tough decisions. He may think something's open and then somebody jumps into frame. That's the way you have to beat somebody like Jayden Daniels right now because he's gaining more and more confidence week by week, and you have to put things and measures in place to remind him that he's a rookie. But you have to do that though. Just saying it is not going to cut it. Now, this situation is probably a little bit different than what we saw with Michael Vick back in the early 2000s when the Eagles had to play him in the championship game in 2003 and then in a postseason game a year or two prior. We were scared to death of Michael Vick and his scrambling ability, and not just the fact he was able to scramble, but the fact that at times he could be deadly accurate with a cannon of an arm. And I know hindsight is 2020, but at the time when they traded for Peerless Price, he was one of the top receivers in the league. He had put up really big career numbers with Buffalo, and everybody had him on their radar. So they had him and Algie Crumpler, and they were not able to get it done. I don't know. I don't remember if Peerless Price was there during the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, but I certainly know Algie Crumpler was there, and Michael Vick getting outside of that pocket, it was a nightmare. You had to keep an eye on him the same way you had to keep an eye on Barry Sanders or somebody like Saquon Barkley because you never know when he's going to kill you. So that front seven, they have to be prepared to keep eyes on him at all time and be able to take his eyes away from Zach Ertz, which is his safety valve. I know Terry McLaurin gets a lot of the attention, but Zach Ertz is the safety valve, and it's going to be very bizarre playing him when he's in another uniform, especially the Commanders uniform. So that's another storyline that I won't even get into right here. So run game, I think that the Eagles can contain their run game. They certainly have a solid run game, but they can be contained. We contain them before, and it's not the run game that's is what concerns you. It's about containing Jayden Daniels and how his threat with his legs opens up the run game for them. So if you're able to contain Jayden Daniels, you in effect kind of neutralize their run game because their offensive line is not really that great, in my opinion. So then let's shift to the passing game, and you look at some of the matchups, and this is the third key matchup or set of matchups, if you will. On the Eagles side, you have A.J. Brown, Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith matching up against Noah. Don't know his last name. I don't know if he'll be starting opposite of Devontae Smith. I feel as though maybe the rookie Sam still maybe starting across from Smith, and then Lattimore maybe starting across from H.A. Brown. I don't know how the Commanders are going to rotate their cornerbacks, but Sam Still and Lattimore, who was traded for from the Saints, they're going to be the key matchups there. Lattimore, after coming back from injury and getting healthy, he's been playing very, very well. Sam is still the rookie. He's had spots. He's looked brilliant at times. He had a good game, and I don't remember which game it was against us, but he had a good game against us in one of those games. But he's vulnerable. He can be attacked. And the matchup, if they have AJ Brown on San still, I love that matchup. Hell, if you have Devontae Smith on San still, I like the matchup, especially if you get one-on-ones with cover one, meaning one safety in the middle of the field and man coverage across the board. They don't play that a lot, um, but when they do, AJ Brown, he's going to torch somebody like San still. So the Commanders, they use the fifth highest rate of man coverage in the past 6 to 7 weeks, and they've allowed the fifth lowest points, at least fantasy wise, per drop back when using man coverage. Um, However, going into the playoffs, they shifted to using the second highest rate of zone coverage, and they've done very, very well in zone coverage. And I think what you need to really pay attention to is weeks 12 to 18. They played that fourth highest rate of cover one. Like I said, one high safety over the middle, man coverage across the board. And the highest rate of cover two, conversely, in the playoffs, two deep safeties and either man coverage on the outsides with the receivers and the slot, possibly if it's a three wide receiver set, or they may be playing soft zones on the outside, maybe a soft cloud zone where the cornerbacks are dropping back 5 to 10 yards behind them and covering those zones, or maybe even a hard flat zone where they're covering the 5 yards in front of them and either coming down to cover somebody in the flat, like a running back or a tight end, or jamming the wide receiver and staying up close and playing a zone 5 yards in front of them, just taking anything out of the flats away. So it doesn't really matter which one they play, because against man coverage, AJ Brown's going to torch you. Dallas Goedert's going to torch you. At times, Saquon Barkley out of the backfield with a wheel route or maybe even a Texas route over the middle can torch you. Even Smitty, one-on-one, he can torch you. But cover two, that's where AJ Brown, he does fine, but Smitty, he shines. He gets a lot of targets, and he's very, very effective against zone. He can find the weak spots or the soft spots in those zones, sit in those soft spots, and just all day, like he's catching off of the jugs machine. So you have weapons to attack them however way they want to slice it. Because in the playoffs, they have not been good when playing man coverage, the Commanders. So I'm thinking that they may want to shift more towards zone, and if they do, not only can you attack them with Schmitty, but now you can go back to the run game, because now when you're in zone coverage, the safety, his first instinct is to drop back. So unless you're playing cover three and you're loading the box up, it's going to be hard to stop the run. And if you load the box up, now you have to watch out for the seam routes with the tight end or the slot receiver. So that Washington defense, if they're not able to get pressure on the passing game by loading the box and wiping out the run game, and they like to run blitz. They run blitz a lot. And I will say Saquon Barkley and that Eagles rushing offense, they have struggled against the run blitz. If they're able to find a way to counteract that, it's off to the races. Without an effective run blitz, I don't really see a way for the Commanders to slow down or stop this run game. And if they're not able to slow down this run game with run blitzes, now all of a sudden, not only are you going to get burned by the run, but now you have an extra defender that's not in coverage that can compromise your coverage on the back end. So those are the matchups I'm looking at if I'm the Eagles. Depending on how they want to play it, can determine whether I'm going to shift to A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. So that's the way I see it on offense for the Eagles, with the matchups between the receivers and cornerbacks. And then on the flip side, you obviously have Quinyon Mitchell coming back, and he's been matched up with Scary Terry this whole year. He won the first matchup. McLaurin won the second matchup, where he had some big catches. Whereas the first game, I think he only had one target, and he might not even have had a catch. And then you have Cooper DeJean on De'Ami Brown. And then you have Darius Slay. So like they can rotate. There's really nowhere for Terry McLaurin to go if they're moving him across the field. It's really about, are they able to get pressure on Jayden Daniels without having to blitz too much. And the second game, we had problems getting pressure with four. We were getting pressure at times, but we were not getting home. So you got to get home, number one, and two, you got to be able to put pressure and get home without sending blitzes too often. Don't overdo it. If you're able to at least move him off of his spot, you don't necessarily have to sack him. You don't necessarily have to um, rough him up. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you're able to just move him off his spot and disrupt the timing of the passing play, so that when the route concepts develop, he's not on the spot where he needs to be. He doesn't have his eyes where they need to be. If you're able to do that, they can have a lot of success like they had in the first game. So for me, I see it as getting pressure on Jayden Daniels without blitzing too much, making sure you're able to not just pick up the blitz in the pass game, but specifically picking up that Washington Commanders blitz against your run plays, because they have a propensity to do that. And then three, taking advantage of the injuries on that Commanders defense, specifically on the offensive side, with Cosme being out at guard, letting Jalen Carter go wild with one-on-one matchups, and then two, taking advantage of Daron Payne being injured in the middle of that already weak Commanders run defense and just punishing them for 4 quarters until they quit. So that's the way I see the game. That was a quick breakdown and analysis. Let me know what you guys think. I'm picking the Eagles to win this game. I couldn't tell you the score. I think it's going to be a tough game. The Commanders throughout history just always play us tough, whether they have 2 wins that year or whether they're a playoff team trying to go to the Super Bowl. They play us like they're trying to go to the Super Bowl no matter what. So we have to be prepared. But I think that the Eagles, maybe they win by 4 to 7 points. I just think that if we are able to establish the run game, and I think we will, we'll be able to eventually break them down by the third to fourth quarter. So let me know what you guys think about that. I didn't really get a chance to look deeply into the Chiefs and the Bills matchup on the flip side for the AFC Championship, but my surface level insights tell me that the Bills with their ground game, that is what's going to make or break their chances to beat the Chiefs and go to the Super Bowl. Whether it's Josh Allen using his legs when the Chiefs try to pressure him, or whether it's James Cook just gashing that defense for huge yardage. So in week 11, Allen, he was pressured, season high 19 dropbacks, but he handled it extremely well. No sacks, 8.3 yards per drop back, and he got 2 total touchdowns. So if Josh Allen can break that pocket, which he's been phenomenal at all year, and get his eyes downfield or possibly take off running, I just don't know how the Chiefs beat them, and I don't foresee a more polished version of Josh Allen making many of the mistakes he used to do. Like it might have been last week or the week before, he had a chance for a lateral, and if you rewind 2 or 3 years back, he would 1,000% pitch that ball back to whoever was on his team and take an unnecessary risk and cause a turnover. He's not doing that this year. So for me, that's one of the big separating factors. Is he's just smarter with protecting the football, along with doing many of the things he was already doing. Protecting the football was his kryptonite. So if he can rectify that, which it seems like he has this year, I think the Bills should have beat them in their last matchup. It might have been the AFC Championship game a couple years ago. With one of their postseason matchups, the Bills had them dead to rights and allowed the Chiefs to get back into the game. You can say the refs helped them out. You can say the Bills collapsed, whatever. They got back and beat the Bills in a game that they should not have beat them in. And I just think that on top of the Bills being more consistent this year, unrelated, this win is long overdue for the Bills because I just think that they're a better team. They just find ways to fold under pressure, and I think that this is the year they keep it together and get over the hump. I think the Chiefs are a very good team. However, they've gotten by with a lot of lucky wins, and then if there are a couple of flags, a couple of calls that don't go their way in this game, I know I'm asking for a lot, football fans. Then they are a very very good team, but I just don't see them being better than the Bills in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think about that, and um, look, we're looking for this dub so we can go back and continue this championship run and close this thing out the right way. So let me know what you guys think. I'll be looking at some boxing. This is off topic. The Inoue fight, huge knockout. I got to talk about that, as well as the signing of the deal between Canelo Alvarez and Bud Crawford. So there's a lot of things to talk about. So I'll be with that next. But until then, enjoy the game, be safe, and go Birds. Peace.